Picture this. 334 BC. A young, ambitious king, Alexander of Macedon, stands at a crossroads. History tells us he turned east, carving out one of the largest empires the ancient world had ever seen, stretching from Greece to India. But what if he had turned west instead? What if his legendary military genius had been unleashed not on the Persian Empire, but on the burgeoning Roman Republic? This isn't just a fun thought experiment, it's a clash of titans that could have completely rewritten the course of Western civilization. Let's set the stage. In the mid-4th century BC, Rome was not the colossal empire we often imagine. It was a regional power, a republic still fighting to dominate the Italian peninsula. They were tough, disciplined, and had a unique citizen-soldier model, but they hadn't yet faced a force like Alexander's. The Roman legion, with its flexible manipular system, was still evolving. They were battle-hardened, from conflicts with Samnites and Gauls, but they were about to face a military revolution. On the other side, we have the Macedonian army. This was arguably the most professional, well-oiled military machine of its time. At its core was the phalanx, a dense formation of soldiers wielding the sarissa, a pike so long it created an almost impenetrable wall of spear points. But Alexander's genius wasn't just in the phalanx. He mastered combined arms tactics, seamlessly integrating his elite companion cavalry, light infantry, and siege engines into a devastating force. He was a master of logistics, speed, and audacious maneuvers that consistently caught his enemies off guard. So, Alexander decides to secure his western flank before heading east. He crosses the Adriatic Sea and lands in southern Italy. His likely justification? Protecting the Greek city-states of Magna Graecia from Roman expansion. The news would have sent shockwaves through the Roman Senate. Here was a king who had just unified Greece, a commander with a reputation that preceded him. The first encounter would be seismic. Imagine the Roman legions, accustomed to more fluid, skirmish-heavy battles on Italian hills, facing the Macedonian phalanx on an open plain. The Romans would charge, their short swords and shields meeting a forest of sarissas. The initial shock for the Romans would be immense. Their traditional tactics of charging and engaging in close-quarters combat would be blunted against this spear wall. The first few ranks of the legion would likely be annihilated before they could even get close enough to use their swords effectively. Alexander, seeing the Roman center pinned, would execute his signature move, the hammer and anvil. While his phalanx held the Roman legions in place, the anvil, he would personally lead his companion cavalry on a decisive charge into the Roman flank or rear. The Roman army, less experienced with cavalry threats of this magnitude, would likely break. Their command structure, led by two consuls who might not even agree on a strategy, was no match for Alexander's unified and charismatic leadership. In this first battle, and likely the second and third, victory would almost certainly go to Alexander. But Rome's greatest strength wasn't winning every battle. It was its incredible resilience. The Roman Republic had a massive pool of manpower and an unyielding spirit. They didn't surrender after a defeat. They would learn, adapt, and return to the field. After the initial devastating losses, Roman commanders would start to analyze the Macedonian way of war. They would realize that the phalanx, so dominant on flat ground, was vulnerable on rough, uneven terrain. The hills and forests of central Italy would become Rome's greatest ally. The Romans would begin to avoid pitched battles on open plains. Instead, they'd adopt guerrilla tactics, harassing Alexander's supply lines, which would be stretched thin as he pushed deeper into Italy. The manipular legion system was perfectly suited for this kind of warfare. Small, flexible units could strike quickly and retreat into the hills, something the cumbersome phalanx couldn't easily counter. Alexander was a master of sieges, but taking every fortified hilltop town in Italy would be a long, grueling, and costly campaign. He was used to decisive battles that won him entire kingdoms, not a protracted war of attrition against an enemy that simply refused to quit. This is where the psychological factor comes in. Alexander was a man driven by a desire for glory and swift, decisive conquest. Would he have the patience for a long, grinding war in Italy? His men, thousands of miles from home, might grow weary of fighting an endless enemy in a foreign land. We saw hints of this in India, where his troops finally convinced him to turn back. Facing a stubborn, regenerating foe like Rome might have provoked a similar crisis. Let's assume Alexander persists. After a series of hard-fought campaigns, he likely would have subjugated the Italian peninsula. He would march into Rome. But what then? Unlike the Persian Empire with its centralized satrapy system, Rome was a republic. There was no single king to defeat and replace. Would he dismantle the Senate? Install a Macedonian governor? This would be a political quagmire. The Roman spirit of independence would lead to constant revolts and insurgency. The long-term consequences are staggering to consider. If Alexander had conquered Rome, the Punic Wars against Carthage might never have happened, or they would have been fought by a Greco-Macedonian power in Italy. The Roman Republic, the foundation for so much Western law, language, and government, would have been snuffed out in its adolescence. Latin might have become a minor dialect, replaced by Greek as the dominant language of the Western Mediterranean. The philosophical and cultural fusion that created the Hellenistic world would have happened in the West, not the East. Instead of a Roman Empire, we might have seen a vast Alexandrian Empire stretching from Spain to Persia. But would it have lasted? Alexander's own empire famously fragmented after his death. It's likely a similar fate would have befallen this Western version. His generals, the Diadochi, would have carved up Italy, Spain, and North Africa into their own Hellenistic kingdoms. We might have had a Ptolemaic kingdom of Italy, or a Seleucid kingdom of Spain. These new kingdoms would have been fundamentally different from the Roman Empire. They would be ruled by a Greek-speaking elite, governing over a diverse population of Latins, Celts, and Iberians. The unique Roman model of extending citizenship and assimilating conquered peoples, a key to their long-term success, would be gone. This might have led to a more fractured, politically unstable Europe, perhaps more similar to the warring states period that followed Alexander's death in the East. Ultimately, while Alexander would almost certainly have won the initial military contest, conquering Rome would have been a very different challenge from conquering Persia. The Roman Republic's unique political structure and social resilience presented a problem that couldn't be solved on the battlefield alone. Alexander's invasion would have been a spectacular clash, a short-term military triumph. But in the long run, the stubborn, adaptable spirit of Rome might have proven to be the one enemy that even Alexander the Great couldn't truly conquer. The world we know today was shaped not just by who won the battles, but by who had the will to endure the war. And in that, Rome was a champion without equal. Thanks so much for watching. This is one of those what-ifs that really gets you thinking about how single decisions can shape millennia of history. What do you think would have happened? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into alternate history, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time.